Welcome back. I hope you've had a chance to explore the live exhibition stands. I'm Matt Hindle, Head of Gas at ENA, and in this final gas session at ENIC 2020, we're going to be covering the important topic of consumer vulnerability. We have presentations from NGN, SGN and WWU about how their innovative projects are taking forward understanding of and developing options to support consumers in vulnerable situations. In our panel session, we'll then be talking about how we bring consumers with us on the net zero journey and what we can do to continue to protect consumers in vulnerable situations as we decarbonise the energy system. You can participate using the chat function at the side to ask questions of the presenters, and I look forward to you joining us for the panel session straight after the presentations. Thank you.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here at the Energy Networks Innovation Conference 2020. I'm Steve Dacre and I'm going to be walking you through what we're hoping to achieve through Project Doorstop. It's a 26-week project and it started on the 9th of October 2020. There are currently 5,000 to 8,000 doorstep crimes reported annually, and it's estimated that actually only 5% of doorstep crimes are actually reported to the authorities. Currently, NGN engineers attending a property typically show their ID badges to gain entry, which often appears to be effective. However, the above outlines the following outlines an increasing number of customers that are likely to have been victims of fraud and therefore be less trusting of unknown visitors. Citizens Advice reports that nearly 20% of people have experienced attempted doorstep fraud, and people surveyed, out of those people surveyed, no one had taken any preventative measures to help protect themselves from doorstep fraud. Only 14% of people were confident that they could identify a doorstep scam if it happened to them. The scale of the problem. There are currently around 17,000 reports relating to doorstep crime which are made to trading standards annually in England and Wales. Due to established low reporting rates, it's estimated that this represents only 10 to 15% of incidents that are actually taking place. So in fact, the true number of incidents annually is estimated between 85,000 and 170,000. Some reporting levels are as low as 5%, which will mean that the incidents could actually be around 340,000 crimes per year. An examination of sample reports shows that an average amount of customer detriment per incident is around £1,000. The total amount of detriment caused to consumers by this crime area can therefore be estimated at around £85 million to £170 million a year. But using the 5% reporting level, actually the reporting detriment could be as high as £340 million a year. A further 1,000 incidents are reported annually to the National Fraud Intelligence Bureau, with an average customer detriment of £4,650, equating to another £4.65 million worth of customer detriment. Using this figure as an average, customer detriment reports to trading standards, the annual amount is estimated to be between £395 million and £790 million a year. Proposed solution. This solution will transform doorstep engagement and mitigate the risk for both customer and colleague, enabling a best-in-class safeguarding process which can be adopted. Project Doorstop will also augment the ID card with facial recognition technology, which will be available through a smart device on a web-accessed portal through the organisation's normal website, without the need for a customer having to download any additional apps or software. The caller's face will be validated against a database of known staff to identify them and the organisation they work for, or conversely, flag to the customer that the caller could not be identified. Those who fail identification will also be flagged to the organisation they claim to work for, enabling appropriate action to be taken where necessary.
Hello?
Hi, this is Melvin Gas about a reported smell of gas.
Oh, brilliant. Can I just check your identity on the app?
Yeah.
Oh, Rob Sharp.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
me.
hi, Rob.
This video clip was demonstrating the practical user and customer application of the software and was filmed at one of our operational depots and the interest from our colleagues has been absolutely amazing. We've now started stage 1, which is a utility company admin portal, which selected staff can be added to or removed. We can update staff information, view metrics on app usage, and follow up on failed recognition attempts reported by customers. That is technology ready levelness 2 to 6. Stage 2 is the customer facial recognition web application, a web page which the customer can use to scan the face of a visitor claiming to work for a utility company to ensure that they are genuine, and if they're not, we can report it. The page will be designed to work on a wide number of devices which have a camera and a web browser, not just the latest smart devices. This page can be accessed from any existing domain or bespoke version for a utility company and can be hosted by our own web offering. It will also be hosted on secure web Amazon servers for facial recognition, and will also use Amazon Web Services to store and analyze the faces of staff and callers. For customers who may find visual identification difficult, we're also looking into the prospect of potentially using voice recognition software, although at this stage there are some issues with where data is stored. So our collaborative partners currently are Cadent and Northern Power Grid. We also have non-financially contributing partners and interested groups. These are Yorkshire Water, Northumbrian Water, National Trading Standards Team, National Scams Team, UK Power Networks, SPEN, Ervia, GasSafe, the Royal National Institute for the Blind, and the Alzheimer's Society. The benefits of this project are solely qualitative, enabling an improved and safer customer experience of doorstep interaction, protecting the customer from doorstep fraud and scams, and logging on when a member of staff is visiting a property. The output will be in the form of an informed recommendation for the rollout for utility networks, the outcome of which is to help shape future design and layout of doorstep customer and user interactions. So what have we done about stakeholder engagement? We've engaged internally with our customer experience team, communications, HR, legal, internal IT teams, our operations guys, social strategy teams, insight delivery services, our external stakeholders, Yorkshire Water, Northumbrian Water, National Trading Standards, UKPN, SPEN, Ervia, GasSafe, RNIB, Alzheimer's Society. So thank you for listening and thank you for your time. I hope you all found it as interesting as I did actually making this. Take care. Speak to you all soon. Bye.
Hello, I hope you're having a good ENIC conference so far. My name is Ryan Smith. I am SGN's Innovation Delivery Manager. I'll be talking to you today about a response from the networks with regards to COVID isolating customers and how we've been managing this process and trying to develop some solutions which will hopefully maintain continuity supply for those customers affected by our replacement works.
So live service transfer supporting COVID-19 impacted customers during network replacement. So in terms of the actual problem statement, obviously as a result of COVID, we can't access customers' properties that we need to perform mains replacement. So we basically asked how might we do this in terms of avoiding accessing the customer's property. Is there a technically viable solution out there that could deliver that function? Is that solution safe? Is it, can be fully risk assessed? And we looked at options in terms of the immediate, short term, medium term, and long term to develop a solution that would offer that function. So in terms of the project setup, really there was a core aim to this, which was, as it says there, conceptualise a method of quickly and safely transferring services live without entering customers' homes or disrupting supply. So obviously we identified this as a friction early on under COVID conditions. We assessed that we made the value proposition of doing the project. We went through the off-gem process of registering an NIA project, so that's Network Innovation Allowance, to effectively fund it. We worked with a company called Steer Energy in the past, who they're a design engineering company who can add real value as part of this process and service. So we engaged with the guys at Steer to come on board and try and develop this. But as we were aware, it wasn't just an SGN issue, it was a UK issue. So as part of the process, although SGN was effectively funding the work, we asked other networks to collaborate and join on the project with effectively resource was the only kind of buy-in to be involved, and we set up a joint GDN task force to collaboratively look at the issues and try and tackle the problem. So once the project was kicked off and the task force met on a regular basis, we actually quickly started to generate a lot of ideas that could be viable solutions to the problem faced. So in terms of just initially conceptualizing a method of how we could do this, it gone from scratching our heads in the first day to by week 2 we had over 30 ideas that were valid in their own rights in terms of a potential solution. So from the early stages, we started to generate quite a lot of information and ideas very quickly as a joint collaborative task force. Obviously, from conceptualizing the various options that we could look to develop, we had to back all those solutions up with technical detail information to fully assess whether or not they're going to be viable or not. So really starting to get into the front end engineering design of the solution and potential risk mitigations. This is just for one idea, and this is a kind of level of some of the detail that we went into to ideate out a potential solution based on the original concept that we came up with. So now I'm just going to take you through some of these options. Obviously we can't go through all the material that was generated as part of this project, but in terms of the lead ideas, I'm just going to run through some of the outputs that was generated from the task force as part of this project. Overall, the solutions that we developed were based on a simple principle of live mains insertion and taking a live bypass of the newly inserted main to tie back into the existing service. So in terms of business as usual options, we looked at already gas approved fittings and see how we could combine those fittings into a different use case to effectively deliver that bypass function. Through this process, we obviously spoke to WASC and AVK around what fittings available and what would be suitable. So we took these fittings, arranged them in such a way that would be a test case to perform the live service transfer process. So we did that and document the evidence in a lab, as well as a number of other risk assurance tests that we added to this process. So in terms of other sort of business as usual, quick to deploy solutions, we looked at what we currently do with multi-occupancy buildings. So generally technology used for larger diameter or above ground pipe work, which we can do live transfers on. So we reviewed the microstop process, which we currently do in SGN and Cadent do, to see if we could adapt that kit for domestic below ground use. The fitting range that we have available for risers didn't quite go down to the sizes of services we need. However, Pipe Tech, who we've worked with on this project, identified the mini stop fittings that are used in a different product would be suitable to apply for below ground use and for the size ranges we needed. Survey bag and survey swap. This was actually idea was generated on the back of an already developed Northern Gas innovation project. So the survey bag process was really about doing live ECV meter ECV exchanges at external meter box positions. So all we really did with this was we tested to see if we could adapt the bag that was already developed and effectively fit a valved T-piece in there, which would offer us the option to fit the bypass directly into that location, do our replacement works on the service whilst maintaining continuity of supply for the customer, and then effectively tying it back into the recently replaced main. Northern had done additional work in developing the solution whereby there was a potential to use bottled gas as well, so that would open up other options in terms of the type of work that we could utilise this solution for, whether it was dead mains insertion, and we looked further at the option of having an inline option that's not just focused on external meter box positions. So Northern's taken that on and developed the solution further through their own NIA process. A directional bagging system. This was identified through the course of the project's conceptualised phase, where we identified a technique that was used in the States that was originally for mass meter rollout but keeping customers live. So Wales and West were quite interested in this one and wanted to take it on and effectively develop the kit for and test it for use in the UK. So at the moment that's one of these fallout projects for the medium term, which Wales and West are currently in the process of reviewing. Okay, the Tee-Nee option, this was developed on the basis of, obviously we've got a number of PE service sizes that we may have to do a live transfer on, but at the moment there's no fittings available from 25mm down to 16mm, which we may encounter as part of this live service transfer process. So really as a reaction to that, Steer actually came up with the idea to develop an inline tapping T for small diameter PE pipe, which could be utilised for the transfer process and potentially further afield for more enduring activities that may link into energy system transition for different types of gases and tie it into services of the future. Okay, bonded PE shims. So this is one that was directly came from the friction I just mentioned there, that we have no tie-in fittings for service sizes from 16 up to 25mm. So in order to do that, we looked at some of the work Cadent had developed as part of the Prism project, which was looked at various bonding solutions for different types of pipes. So I don't know if you've seen Bond and Bolt, the SGN did, and then Bonded Saddle that Cadence done. So there is a methodology there that we could use some sort of bonded shim fitting to effectively increase the OD, the outside diameter of the pipe that you're working on, then effectively fuse the 32 top T onto that service pipe, and you could then do your live bypass tie-in on that basis. So ALH we've sent ALH a number of PE fittings, so they're just going through the process of strength testing the bond, that if it meets the right standards. I think it's PL3 Appendix D, I think it is, in terms of the lateral lateral movement on the pipe, and is it strength tested and fit for purpose. So that work at the moment is being assessed, and we're waiting for results from ALH just to come back to see if it is actually suitable to take further and potentially look at bench testing and live trials. So summary of the options talked about today. So really working from the left to the right, this just gives you a range of some of the activities we've been involved in as part of this collaborative project. So initially from higher spec full PPE options to existing approved gas fittings, down to adaptation of existing processes into development of new technology and processes which would deliver the function that we're looking for. Obviously this is been a collaborative with various project partners from Wales and West Northern and Cadent, and the various suppliers who've been involved in the process as well, and obviously Steer Energy, who have been the main design engineering consultancy workers on this project, who've added real value overall. So in conclusion, this was a highly collaborative project with all the GDNs involved as part of a frequently meeting task force, which was fully engaged in the process, and actually the outputs for a very short period of time was actually astronomical in terms of the volume of concepts and technical information and assessment that went on as part of this project. The suppliers as well involved, so just producing fittings and sending us samples and stuff. Again, excellent engagement across industry with this project to try and develop a solution that wasn't just for us, it was really for the customer, to ensure that we could, just because you're isolating from COVID, you can't be left behind when we're doing mains replacement activity in the street just because of the current situation you're in. So, everybody involved, massive thanks to them on that, to come up with these solutions. So in terms of where we are for the short term, so we've got technically viable solutions that are just going through the final approvals. We've done all the risk assessment work, and we've managing that risk appropriately through the ALARP process. So that's as low as reasonably practicable to an tolerable level. So everything that we're doing has been fully risk assessed and checked through a certain risk philosophy to ensure that it's it's fit for purpose. We're continuing to do policy reviews on the process as it's enhanced and developed throughout the field trial and deployment process. So any identified procedural steps that we can change to make it more efficient and safer, then we will obviously look at that as part of that ongoing policy review as part of the process. In terms of medium-term options, kind of been through some examples. So there's a cross-GDN task force exploring suitable options that can be developed further for use. So, for instance, Wales and West looking at DBS, Northern taking on the service swap project and developing that as well. So, and obviously the Tee-Nee for longer-term small diameter PE tie-ins. In terms of the longer term R&D stuff, we are still looking for other solutions as well. So really, if there's anything out there that anyone's aware of on that, I'm happy and willing to have a conversation with anyone who may have another potential solution that may require a bit of R&D work. But we're open to discussion, and we're willing to have a conversation as to what ideas you may have and could bring to the task force. On that, I would just like to say thanks for your time, and if you've got any questions, I think we're moving to Q&A.
Good afternoon, my name is Nigel Winnan. I'm the Customer Service and Design Manager at Wales and West Utilities. I'm here today to talk to you about the Street Score Innovation Project, a joint project between Northern Gas Networks, SGN and Wales and West Utilities, and our lead partner is Steer Energy. So what's the context, the challenge behind this innovation project? Well, as gas networks, we need to replace thousands of kilometres of mains and tens of thousands of services in order to make our networks ready for net zero in 2035. And that will allow us to up the pressures to transport green gases and hydrogen. In addition, we've still got emergency works to do, connections work to do, and all that means disruption to the public, in particularly priority customers. And by priority customers, I'm talking about people with particular disabilities, vulnerabilities, maybe age, mental health, etc. And current estimates state that's about 30% of their population. So the Street Score project is looking to take a bit of a step back really from the problem to review the design, the planning, the delivery of street works and putting the public at the heart of the project. A couple of examples here on the screen. You can see that typical signage tends to be aimed at vehicle users and can itself cause obstructions on the footpath. We've got a couple of different views here of a typical streetworks job. One from a normal view from the public, but at a lower level from a wheelchair user or someone on a mobility scooter, it becomes an even more daunting challenge. Machinery on site can produce a lot of noise, dust, dirt, etc. And again, add to the confusion, the anxiety about passing these works. And I would like to say also that the networks are also focusing in on some specific issues as well. Ramps being a particular issue, whether that's for people in wheelchairs or mobility scooters, and a separate ramp up project is looking specifically on how we redesign those ramps to make them even better for users in the future. So, existing guidance, it is out there. The Department of Transport publishes what's known as Chapter 8 or the Red Book. And within that we'll find various bits of guidance. Attention must be paid to the needs of pedestrians, particularly around bus stops, shops, post offices, and particularly where there's numbers of people with physical or mental impairments to be expected. And then an additional note in the guidance around access to public transport, again particularly where people with mobility impairments are very reliant on those transport. And there are bits and pieces dotted around within this guidance, but we want to bring those to the fore and almost have a supporting guidance to really give our guys a guide on how best to look after people at our works. So our challenge, primarily this is around priority groups. We're certainly looking at all users, everyone who passes by our works, whether that be pedestrians, cyclists, young people with perhaps children, pets in tow. Now we know that people have got a tolerance limit of what they'll find acceptable, and there's a risk that if you breach that tolerance limit for some people, particularly with vulnerabilities, then they may not even enter that area. And what does that mean? Well, it means that one, we've disrupted their normal routine, it's causing anxiety, it might lead to them staying at home, which then causes further issues with isolation, potentially not going to the doctors for their appointment, or perhaps meeting up with other people. So a whole load of problems caused by just our streetworks there disrupting their routine. So in the solution to this project, what we're looking at is that all members of the public will feel happy in transiting our streetworks, that will address traditional risks. So we know that there's particular risk associated with the excavations, with trip hazards, with noise, etc. But as I'm saying, we're taking a step back in this project to listen to people, to listen to users, to understand what the actual issues are. And we want to ensure that the planning, the actioning in streetworks is optimised, both for the utility company and for the public. Just outlining the approach to this project. So 3 phases. We're currently really in this first phase of identifying what the challenges are. So a lot of research going on, looking at literature researches, survey monkeys, etc. Working with groups who represent customers, whether they might be the blind or the autistic or dementia, etc. Interviewing and observing the challenges they actually face through visits to sites and observing what goes on. And getting to the nub of what they see as the real important issues we need to address. Second work package will look particularly at some of the known challenges, walkboards, signage, passageways, etc. Identify what the key pain areas are to people, what have got the biggest impact. And we're looking to assign a scoring mechanism to these projects. I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. And thirdly, as I say, this is phase 1 of this project. We're looking to identify 2 or 3 key areas and develop some further projects for the future. We want to take those back to the user group that we're identifying in this first stage to test those concepts, and that will lead into some focused projects of phase 2. A nice word cloud here to show some of the key things that have come out of the research so far, and you can see a number of keywords in here that will relate to physical challenges that people face, to mental health challenges, some big ones about autism, dementia, etc. Things that perhaps we wouldn't have thought about 10 years ago when the Streetworks guidance was written, but have come very much to the fore as awareness of mental health issues has grown over the last few years. People with age-related illnesses could suffer from a whole range of challenges when they get to a site. But you'll see from some of the other words, mustn't forget that prams, people with pets, cyclists are also impacted by our works, and we don't want to forget about those groups. So, like I say, we're at a stage now where we have done a lot of the research. We're finishing off a survey monkey to close that out. But the key findings we're seeing so far are there's 3 key themes that we need to address. One is journey mapping and scoring. So this is going to be looking at the demographics of the area, using data to understand who lives in the area, who's actually traversing our works, relating that to the scale, the location, and the duration of our works, and putting a score and a risk mechanism behind that project. Secondly, to identify and show hazards. So this is all about communication really, and it's what tools can we actually give to our workers who are actually setting up and controlling these sites, but also to the public. How do we communicate to the public what the works are in advance, and if they come into an area and they're familiar with it and they come across our works, how do they know how they can best traverse either through it or what their safe diversion route around it might be. And third is the aesthetics. As we saw from some of those pictures earlier on, they can be quite daunting, our sites, when you arrive at a whole load of signs and barriers and symbols that show different arrows and warning signs, etc. So we're really keen to look at the aesthetics. And a couple of things that have already come out of the research is that colour can be a particular issue for some people. Bright colours can obviously trigger a bit of an alert mechanism. Also, we need to think about what these things look like at night. They're all very well on a nice sunny day, but in poor light or at night when they've got flashing lights on, what additional challenges do those present to the public? So finally, just want to close out really on where we are and what our plans are moving forward with this project. The timeline we're on at the moment means that we're looking to conclude this by the end of January 2021. We have had some challenges this year due to the COVID situation, various people being furloughed, challenges in getting to site. So we have had to re-baseline our timeline. The end of January is what we're looking at. And as I said, we've got 3 key pieces that we're focusing on. One is developing a full impact assessment tool with key mitigations. And this is really a bit of a companion to that red book, to that chapter 8 guidance already exists. Something that we can actually use as businesses to improve our planning, improve the guidance we give to our employees, and something we can actually measure the impact by. Timing-wise, it's also very good. The red book is currently up for review by the Department of Transport, and we sit on a number of committees as utility organisations, so we've got a chance to influence the future look and feel of that book. Secondly, we talked about the communications. To be developed, we're thinking about the sort of, perhaps some more friendly signing. The Red Book is very much a mandatory signing that needs to be there. What can we actually do in terms of signage on sites? What can we do in terms of communication to not just the users who live directly alongside the works, but to people who might pass through that area on the way to a school or a community centre or a health centre. And thirdly, as we talked about, looking at the actual look, the feel, the aesthetics of the site. Although, like I say, we are looking at some further phases of the project, focusing on 2 or 3 of the key areas from the conclusions. What we can see already is there will be some immediate learning, some stuff that we can pass into our colleagues, amend our processes, so that we've got some instant impact next year that will make our sites even safer and more approachable for the public. Thank you very much for listening. I'm participating next in the panel discussion on vulnerability, and I look forward to your questions in that. Thank you very much.